It's hard when you got to do everything yourself. Okay, we're going to start in a couple of seconds here. I appreciate you all being here. Sign in, let me know that you're here. And we are going to be, oh, hell, we got 5 people here. Let's start now. So we're reading from Sheriff in a Small Town. We're going to read a couple of chapters today. And we're starting with a Dent in Josh's armor. So Josh was hired by his company, and his job is to kind of create chaos in town so that the Romart company can purchase Rocky's property. So he's trying to do that. But it's not always easy when this is a town that you grew up in. So Rocky was taking a break after long, stressful hours in the office. He was headed to the lake to do a little fishing. A good catfish dinner would make him feel better. As he drove there, he almost sideswiped Josh, who was walking in the street thinking deeply. Rocky leaned on the horn, startling Josh awake. Rocky laughed at the startled look on him. A hand pressed to Josh's heart. Sorry, pal, but I didn't want you to see you get hit. Hey, I've got 2 poles with me. Why not come along and do some fishing like we used to? Josh shrugged and eased into the truck's cracked leather interior. At the lake, with their lines in the water and their backs against a couple of trees, they caught up. Rocky talked about the events in town, including the mobsters who had tried to take him, Talbot, and Morgan out. He explained about the heroic rescue by Morgan's marauders who sniped from above. He spoke warmly about the towns coming together even tighter after that. Folks around here may sometimes fight amongst themselves, but when anyone tries to hurt one of their own, we close ranks and God help the one who tried to do the hurting. Josh gulped when he realized he was now in the position of an enemy of the town. His sowing of discontent was working, and the youth of the town were starting to get agitated. This was a twofold operation, and he was the one on the inside. The outside forces were agitating too, but it was costing his boss quite a bit from what he'd heard, and the town was reaping the benefits. To change the subject, he spoke offhandedly about his time in college, his acceptance to a big company on graduating, and his rise to his current position. Like everyone else, he told, Rocky congratulated him and said he always knew he had it in him to make it big. Hey, remember when we used to come here and try to catch the huge catfish? Yeah, we must have tried every bait we could. Nothing seemed to work, though. Did anyone ever catch it? Rocky grinned. Yep, Agnes did a while ago. I got to watch a fierce tug of war between them. Tried to help and got kicked in the shins for my trouble. Eventually she landed him, but while taking a breather, he flopped back into the lake. I haven't seen him since. Haven't seen him in a while, so maybe somebody already got him. Josh turned excitedly that someone had caught, if only temporarily, the monster of the lake. Well, what bait did she use? Rocky opened the basket and pulled out a Tupperware box full of fried chicken pieces. Piece of fried chicken as only Agnes can make it. He shredded a piece of the chicken and they baited their lines. Josh relaxed as warm breezes blew lazily past, bringing the scent of grass, field flowers, pine, and water. He realized the strain of playing 2 roles was starting to get to him, even though he'd only just begun his campaign. Sitting with his old friend was like turning back the clock. Rocky had seen some kids pushing him around and rushed to the rescue. He hadn't yelled at the other kids, he had just looked at Josh and said, "Come on, we got this," and proceeded to lay in. Josh knew that his part in the fight had been negligible, but he did his best and got a few good shots in. The fact that he had not only fought back, but that someone like Rocky was ready to wade in on his behalf stopped the harassment. Got around school that Josh had taken on the school bullies and won, and he was shown a certain amount of respect. That was what had inspired him to stand up when Jane had been bullied in her turn. The look of anger on his face made her foes scatter for cover. He didn't have anything to do anything more than just look mad. After that, she was always at his side. She looked at him not only as her protector, but as the knight who had won her heart and favor. Memories stirred up all the times they had been together to the final one where her knight had broken her heart. He cursed his callousness in leaving so abruptly. A tug on his line brought his mind back. The line was bent almost double, and Rock jumped up to help. No, I want to bring this monster in. Rocky sat back to watch. It was a monster, all right, and one that was even bigger than Agnes's. He considered that in the time between Agnes catching it and today, it could have gotten that big. Maybe it was the same one. Fight was on as Josh reeled and the fish leapt high into the air. Josh worked to tire the beast out, but he was the one who was tiring. As he drew the fish closer, its sheer size amazed them both. The line was in danger of breaking, but like Agnes, he wasn't going to seek assistance. If the fish escaped, it was because it won fair and square. Slowly and carefully, he eased it onto land. Rocky had his camera at the ready and snapped a whole roll of film. This is going into the Sentinel. The greatest catch of the season, and you did it, buddy. Josh put the fish back in the water. It lay still, and Josh was afraid that at last the fish had lost its life. A few gasps in the lake, and its tail began to wave. Soon it darted for deeper water. Well, we've got the evidence, so it's free until the next challenger. Let's not tell what we use as bait, though. Your wife would be cooking chicken day and night. Rocky and Josh drove to the Sentinel and told the tale of the Battle of Lake Century and the glorious escape of the big one. Rocky handed over the film and they went to see Morgan. This was something that would drive him nuts. In all the years of fishing, he had yet to catch that monster, and here were two people who had done it, one being his own daughter. Now there was evidence to back the claim. Two men laughed at the look they figured would be on Morgan's face at the news. Josh had always been welcome in the house when he had come to do chores to earn some extra money. Sheriff usually paid him, plus gave him a soda, and if Morgan's wife was at home, she'd make a sandwich or something more substantial after his labors. But then the whole town was like that. In town, a man in jeans and a t-shirt approached one of the older residents and asked where the sheriff lived, saying he had a package to deliver. He was holding a long, thin box under his arm. The lady chuckled. Probably some flowers from an admirer. Former Sheriff Morgan was still a good-looking man, and if she wasn't already married, she would be sending him some herself. She pointed down the street and described the home off Main Street. Some of the older residents still considered Morgan to be the sheriff and couldn't really adjust their minds that he wasn't one any longer. He'd had the job longer than any other and was closely associated with the town. The man rode off on his bike. Stopping near the residence she had described, he opened the box. A wine bottle with a cloth wick was brought out and the box tucked out of sight in the bushes. He didn't consider whether anyone was at home. The object was to burn the house down. If someone was home, well, that was just too bad. He lit the wick and threw toward a side of the house hidden from the street. Hopping on his bike, he pedaled off furiously down the road as a truck came down the street towards him. A wisp of smoke traveled on the breeze and curved in front of the house. It grew thicker as the truck drew closer. Rocky accelerated and drove around to the front lawn, screeching to a halt. Running around the edge with Josh on his heels, he grabbed the hose, yelling for Josh to turn on the water. Josh spent precious seconds hooking the other end up to the spigot and spun the wheel. Water flowed and the fire spread faster. Rocky cursed himself for a fool, realizing water was the worst thing to use. He grabbed a shovel and shoveled dirt on against the flames and over the grass. Eventually, it was put out before any significant damage happened, but thick smoke had entered an open window. Rocky drove in through the window and opened the front door, allowing the room to clear. On the couch, Morgan lay sleeping with a newspaper draped over his face. He woke to Rocky's shake on his shoulder and sleepily noticed his place was smoky. I gotta stop eating so much chili, he muttered, shaking his head to wake up. Hey, Rock, what the heck happened? Rocky led him outside, scraping away the mound of dirt. He showed him the broken bottle. The smell of gasoline was strong in the air, and scorch marks showed gray and black against the white paint. Morgan cursed. Those damn mobsters are still trying to get us. He was incredulous. It wasn't reasonable after all this time. Rocky, you better head home and see if Agnes is all right. Rocky wasn't so sure it was mobsters. He had a feeling this was on account of himself and not selling his land. Almost anyone being asked of the sheriff's residence would send them here. He called Agnes, and she was upstairs and looked out all the windows. Nobody was around. She became nervous, though, and headed into town to her family home. In all the commotion, Rocky didn't notice that Josh was not there with him. Josh knew why this had happened and who was responsible. And anger filled his soul. No bonus, no position was worth this, especially when it affected people he cared about. The moment Josh, okay, this is the next chapter, discussions. The moment Josh saw that the broken bottle and smelt the gasoline, he realized not only who was behind it, but also that this was just the beginning. He hadn't expected his boss to escalate things to this extent. It was just dumb luck that they had chosen the wrong house. It was even luckier that he and Rocky had arrived when they did. Walking around town, he heard people arguing. Kids arguing with their parents, adults arguing with each other. Everyone had an opinion on what should be done about Rocky's new home and farm and the new store that wanted to build there. You could hear plenty of people saying that he should just give it up, that it wasn't as if he'd ever farm, and donating to the school didn't count. Class wouldn't last, and kids nowadays didn't want to farm. They wouldn't want to live the harsh, uneasy life a farmer did, always one step away from ruin. Kids wanted to go to town and see the city, wear fancy clothes, and spend all night gadding about. Ours talked about the history and the unchanging legacy of the town. Well, it's a time capsule where traditions die hard and people take care of one another. It was a place of the rest of America should be like. Everywhere he turned, people argued their points, shouting to be heard over others expressing their own ideas. He called his boss in anger. He'd done what they wanted to, and it was working, but he wasn't happy about the results. He was told not to worry about it anymore. It was out of his hands, and he should come back to work. He argued that they shouldn't have tried to torch the sheriff's house, only to be told to shut up, pack up, and get back to the office. He was done there. Walking home, he saw Jane approaching. She saw him and rushed across the street. She never looked back to see if he was following. He picked up the newspaper from the co-op and saw it was thicker than normal. Page after page was filled with letters to the editor. The town was coming apart. It was ripping itself in half, and he'd had a hand in making it happen. Walking past the bar, a fight had broken out and spread. The squad car was approaching. Deputy Talbot got out looking haggard, as if he was near breaking point himself. At home, his parents were out, and when he went up to his room, he had his suitcase on the bed when he saw something on the dresser. It was round and plastic with a red plastic gem in the center. A crackerjack ring he'd given to Jane when he was much younger. When she accepted it, she had said it was an engagement ring, and she'd always wear it. She'd kept it all this time, wearing it on a chain around her neck. Now she had returned it. He clutched it, and his anger seethed, not at her, at himself. His parents came rushing in, peering out from a crack in his door. He saw his dad had a gash on his temple where a bottle had been thrown and caught him and shattered. His mother rushed into the kitchen for a wet cloth. Josh leapt out the window and landed in the raspberry bushes below. The thorns tore at his flesh, but he barely noticed them. He went rushing to the courthouse. He had to talk to Rocky and Talbot. Rocky and Talbot had a full house, and it looked as if it was going to get a lot fuller quick. Councilman Frank was looking out just as frazzled as the two lawmen. Just felt faint as he saw the commotion flowing around him, ready to break into more violence. Just walked up to Rocky, who looked up, recognized him, and asked him to come back later. Sheriff, I have to speak to you now and privately. Rocky locked the courthouse door, waved to Talbot and Frank to come into the back room as well, then closed and locked that door. Something in the way Josh had said sheriff instead of Rocky made him realize something vitally important was coming up. When everyone was seated, he gave Josh an inquisitive look. Josh cleared his throat and began. What's going on in town is partially my fault. Rocky smirked in spite of himself. He didn't consider Josh capable of having a hand in the mess the town was in. Rocky, I'm serious. The whole town is in an uproar because I spent the last couple of weeks creating the atmosphere to make the uproar possible. You know from experience how people talk and blow things out of proportion. When the rumor mill begins running, what comes out the end is vastly different than what started. I was sent to do just that. Rocky's brows puckered. Sent? Oh, hell, you can't mean it. You work for. Josh nodded. Rocky slumped as if he'd been shot. Oh, sorry, too. This cut him to the core. Josh continued, I can't ask you to forget what I began. I didn't expect things to get out of control so fast. Plus, the fact that they tried to firebomb Sheriff Morgan's home made me realize this whole thing is going to end with a decimated town. My town. The one I grew up in and hope to come back to someday. If something isn't done quick, there won't be a town at all. That's what Mr. Wallace is counting on. He figures on driving everyone out, then picking up the entire county's sheep. Frank looked like a man in shock, his voice hoarse with strain and emotion. Well, you have any suggestions on how to get things under control? Josh swallowed. Open the theater and have the whole town meet there. Sheriff Stone can use the squad car to pass the word. Rocky considered it and shook his head. Tempers being what they are, putting the whole town into one place might be like setting off a light to a powder keg. Josh agreed, but felt it was the only way to get everyone to hear the few truths. Rocky got up and put on his gun belt and motioned for Talbot to do the same. Frank, get the theater open. We'll meet you there as soon as we've covered the town. Figure out about an hour, get the heads of all the businesses on the stage to answer questions. I'll be up there too and help Frank act as a mediator. He looked at Josh, pulled down Buster's uniform, and had him put it on. He deputized him and told him to station himself at the rear of the theater. He gave him a gun, but no ammo. Don't pull your piece, just having it on will be enough of a deterrent. Put a deputy badge on the uniform and told him to head out with Frank. Rocky unlocked the cells and had with the admonition that they all go to the theater immediately. Plenty of others would follow. Rob Robeson, the owner of the theater, was not pleased when he heard what was going to happen. He was sure that the entire place would go down in flames. That is what we are trying to prevent, Frank exclaimed. For some reason, Rob decided to pop popcorn and give it away so that people would have something while they waited. Well, Frank agreed that it would make them feel as if they were there to see a show instead of hearing a meeting. Might put them in a better mood. He promised that Rob also allowed them sodas that the council would reimburse them for the lost revenue. Rocky and Talbot made the rounds of every street, alley, back street, park, and anywhere else they saw people congregating. As they moved on, they saw people begin walking to the theater. I think we ought to hit the farm district too. Talbot was holding a map of the county and on his lap, marking off places they had hit. They're too far out. They probably haven't even been infected by the madness. Then he reconsidered. Every one of them had family that had probably been involved one way or another. Might just want to be in on the discussion. He stopped at the first farm on the outskirts and told him to meet at the theater and to spread the word in case anyone wanted to show. They have to rely on telephones to reach the most outlying areas. His jurisdiction was just too large to be driving around the rest. Rocky turned to Talbot. Well, let's be getting back. Talbot nodded and readjusted his gun belt. When Rocky and Talbot entered the theater, they did so separately and slammed the doors open hard. The bang of the door on the wall echoed around the theater, effectively silencing everyone. The faces were sterner than they had ever seen them. There was no doubt that whatever was coming, they meant business. Striding onto the stage, they sat down with arms crossed and glared out over the assemblage. Frank rose and began his speech. He spoke of his disappointment at the town tearing itself apart. He complained that the town was allowing rumors to be spewed as facts, and facts to be so overshadowed by those rumors to be lost in the shuffle. Folks, I've been busting my ass to finish the job of our historical society began, and that's to have us registered as a historic location. It means a hell of a lot of money to come in way of the tax reductions, grants, and plenty of other things. Puts us on the map as a place for folks to come to, but nobody would want to come to here now. Not the way this town is being ground into dust by its own people. So it all started when a big company wanted to buy a parcel from someone who didn't want to sell. Sent people in to stir you up, and it sure worked. You became puppets as they pulled the strings and kept you dancing. Now look at you. Everyone at everyone else's throat. Is this who we are? We don't give a damn about our neighbors anymore. You all know Sheriff Morgan. He and his family have been a friend of this county before half of you were even born. You know that this big company tried to firebomb his home and probably would have killed him if Rocky hadn't been going to visit him. Hell, do you even care? They were mumbling and angry grumbles about anyone who would try and harm Sheriff Morgan. Martin Morgan was an institution who would risk his life for them on numerous occasions. Someone who never hesitated to put the needs of the community before his own comfort. Who would retire and come back on duty when the town needed him. A good number hung their heads in shame. Rocky got up to speak. Folks, I'm tired of fighting, and if you ask me to hand over my place, I will. Where I'll go, I don't know, but I won't stay in a town where I'm not wanted. He took off his badge and threw it on the stage. Talbot did the same. People turned red in embarrassment. Rocky and Agnes had also done more for the town than anyone could reasonably expect from a sheriff and his wife. Like Morgan, he had always put the needs of the community before his own comfort. Frank got up again. Folks, I want to show you a slideshow I had sent from Miami County. This was Troy before the same big food and department store that wants to bully us into giving them what they want came into town. What was shown on the screen was a town not too much unlike their own. It had a warm, forever feeling with tree-lined streets and buildings that had stood the test of time. Picture after picture was shown of people window shopping, talking, having picnics, fishing, church socials, Sunday socials, and concerts. People nodded in acknowledgement of a town with history and a sense of community. Frank pointed a finger dramatically at the screen, but his voice thundered out, well, this is what the town looks like today. What showed on the screen was no longer a town. It was a vacant place with businesses that had once been mom and pop type shops, general stores and co-ops all closed and boarded up. Few of the businesses had survived, and there was nobody window shopping. Well, there were a few windows to peer into, but the rest were all boarded up or broken. One picture, a dog lay in the street. Since there was so little traffic, it had nothing to fear of getting hit. Picture of the big store with cars parked all around it was shown. They looked busy, prosperous, and at the cost of the people and property of Troy. The sidewalks barren, houses off the main street that were run down and looking as if they just didn't care anymore. Gone were the flowers that bordered the yard, gone the spreading trees that shaded the sidewalks. It looked sad and forlorn, and it hurt their hearts to look at the pictures any longer. A feeling of there but for the grace of God go I pervaded the room. The feeling of shame and guilt grew stronger by the second. Rocky rose with the return of his patient and caring demeanor. Folks, we can make adjustments that will provide what you feel is missing if you just give us a chance. He turned to the manager of the co-op. Ken Bill got up and approached the microphone. Folks, the co-op isn't large, but it can get anything any other store can. We'll get rid of items that don't sell or just get a lot less for the few who do want them. His voice took on a pleading tone. Hell, we just need to know what you want. Heck, if you say you want squid brought in twice a week, well, you'll have it. Of course, if you ask us to buy squid, you better sure as hell buy it. There was a scattering of laughter. Seriously, though, I think speaking for the rest of the business here when I say we're here to serve you. We have been since we opened, and we'll be long after we're gone. But you have to tell us what you want. Do that, and we'll do our best to keep you happy. He stepped away from the mic and halfway to his seat turned back and begged, "But please, don't ask for the squid, because those darn things smell god awful." Frank bent down and picked up the two badges. "Last item on the agenda, folks. Who's going to be our sheriff and deputy?" Mine roar for Talbot and Rocky echoed off the walls. Frank hesitated. "If I hand these badges back to them, you realize that we're definitely saying a no to the big company." Again, they called to give the badges back to Rocky and Talbot. A thundering applause greeted them when they put them back on their uniforms. Rocky and Talbot approached center stage. Talbot did the talking this time. "Folks, we're on the job and we're going to need your help. The wounds that have been slashed across our town are deep. We're going to need a lot of healing. We'll do our part as always, but we need you to mend the harm that words can do. Get with your neighbors again and make amends. Let's show the historical register people when they come that this town is special not just for the historical building, but for the love and spirit of the people too." He rated another thunderous round of applause as people rose to disperse or come on stage and add their wants to the list. Just was scanning the faces, people left the theater, searching hopefully for one special face. Anyone not in love would not have seen Jane sneak up through a side door instead of going towards the rear. Dove through the drove of people and rushed to cut her off. She saw him and started running, tears streaming, almost blinding her. He chased her, and though he had put on every ounce of speed he could, he almost lost her. Her heel broke while still half a block away. Her uneven gait slowed her down, and he reached her in front of the diner. He caught her arm as she swept it to slap his face. Releasing it, he lowered his arm. "Go ahead and do it. I deserve it." She gave it her best try, but ended up with only a slight slap that barely tingled. His eyes were full of anguish, and he begged her to let him explain. Seating her on the bench, he took a deep breath. This was going to be a make or break moment for him. He was about to use all the marketing skills he had, but looking at her, he couldn't spin things in his favor. He just laid his soul bare. "Jane, I don't know the words to apologize enough for what I did. I hurt you. I can't think of anything in the world worse I could do. I need to tell you some things that, well, will probably make you hate me even more, but I have to tell you this. That company that I wanted to build here, that's the company I work for." Her eyes got wide, then narrowed. "I'm quitting as soon as we're done talking. I was sent to begin a rumor mill and get people all riled up. I did, and they did. First, all I thought about was my advancement and bonuses if I succeeded. I hardened my heart against anything that would stop me, and I had to harden it most against you. You'd called me as I left, I would have stopped, come back. I know you couldn't because I hurt you so much. When I called in to work and told them what was happening, my boss laughed. He laughed at the suffering of this town. We weren't people to him. We were property, and he could destroy and buy cheap. Told me to pack up and come back. When I heard how callous he could be, how all that mattered was his getting what he wanted, I realized that nothing and nobody mattered to him but him. I was a tool to be cast aside if I didn't get him what he wanted. He tried to kill Mr. Morgan. He didn't check or care if people were inside that house. He just had someone set it on fire, occupied or not. Hell, I can't work for a place like that, so I'm quitting. Jane, all I ever wanted to do was succeed, to claw my way to the top and get away from here. I wanted to be a big success, but in doing so, I never saw what I was losing in the process." Crouched down so that he was looking up at her, pleading with her to forgive him, to let him start again from the beginning. "I want to start again, to try and rebuild your faith in me. I know it's going to take a lot to earn that trust, but you're worth any effort. Will you let me try? Will you let me work my way back into your heart, please?" There was no doubt he had hurt her, and he seemed to want to make amends. She wasn't sure, though, if she could forgive him. It was not something she could just say, "Yeah, okay," in a flippant manner. If she was going to forgive him, she had to do it all the way. She wasn't a person who went in for half measures. He leaned forward, hoping for some glimmer of a chance to rebuild. If she forgave him, he could rebuild his life here. Doing what, he wasn't sure, but anything that paid a salary would do. If not, well, then he'd go back to the city and start again somewhere, anywhere, doing anything. Without her, it wouldn't matter. When he leaned forward, she was looking down at him, past his eyes, his chin, and down into the pocket of his shirt. She saw the ring he had given her and what she had returned. No one else to be so emotional about a crackerjack plastic ring would seem ridiculous and childish. To them, it was a bond that had been broken, that had lasted since childhood. She took the ring and held it in her hand, looking at it sadly. She folded her hands over it, and holding it in the clenched fist, she flung it away. Jess was momentarily in shock as she rose and silently walked off. For a second, he buried his head in his hands, crouched before the bench. The next moment, he was looking all over for the ring. He had to find it. It was his only connection to her. Tears dripped down the sidewalk as he desperately checked pavement cracks and small grassy patches. On hands and knees, he groped in desperation. Bumping into a pair of legs, he excused himself and continued his desperate search. Jane held out her hand to him, on which rested the plastic ring. The fake stone shone in the sunlight like a ruby. Excuse me, I need to drink real quick. On hands and knees, okay. Bumping into a pair of legs, he excused himself and continued his desperate search. Jane held out her hand to him, on which rested the plastic ring. The fake stone shone in the sunlight like a ruby. She helped him up and looked up into his questioning eyes. I had to know how important I was to you. If you had walked away, I would have too. You didn't. You searched for this. That meant that I was important, since this would be the only thing of mine you would have. She handed it over and held out her little finger. With trembling hands, he slipped it onto her finger as he had almost 20 years ago. In the middle of the bustling sidewalk, they kissed as if there were no other people in the world save them. Hand in hand, they walked to the courthouse. He needed to talk to Rocky again. Entering, he saw Morgan, Rocky, and Talbot drinking coffee and relaxing. It seemed like ages since they had had the chance to just enjoy each other's company. Josh went straight to Rocky and asked if he could borrow the phone. He had something he needed to do. Rocky nodded, stood, and offered a seat to Jane. She dropped to a curtsy and sat down. Rocky sat on the edge of the radio table and listened. They all wanted to know what Josh was doing. Hi, Linda. Can I speak to the boss, please? There was a pause, and they could hear the slight click as the call was transferred. The person who picked up was bellowing into the phone. Josh Peterson, where the hell are you? Told you to get your ass back here. You're down there, and you have a job to do here. I'm going to send in the shock troops to shut that damn town down. Rocky asked for the phone. Sir, this is Sheriff Stone. This call is being recorded. You've issued a definite threat to this town, and I construe that as an act of terrorism and will take the appropriate action. The sound of a door opening and the firm's regular steps of FBI agent Stetson could be heard over the line. He introduced himself and said he was there and answered Rocky's call. The other line clicked amidst the frenzied cursing. Agent Stetson, here is definite proof that this company has been terrorizing this community. He handed over the taped conversation, and he opened a cabinet and pulled out a file. Here are pictures of the people they have sent to harass the council members on a continual basis. All the pictures had dates and timestamps. Pointed to Josh. This is Josh Patterson, who worked for that company. He was concerned about what he heard and they wanted to do, and has been working with us to gather evidence. Josh whipped out his wallet and pulled a telegram he had received instructing him to spread malicious lies and get the community working against each other. The wording was pretty strongly inflammatory. Josh didn't know why he had kept the paper, but now he was damn glad he'd had. It backed up Rocky's claim. The agent asked questions and took the evidence of the Molotov cocktail Rocky had preserved, as well as pictures of the damage to Morgan's home. Agent Stetson was complimentary on the quality of the evidence he put in the call. The raid had already begun on the headquarters of Costless Markets. Turning to Josh, he indicated that he might be called in to give evidence. Putting everything into a case, he left, rushing to participate in the raid. Everyone was grinning on the comeuppance that was going to happen to the man in charge. Josh brought up the reason for his coming in. Rocky, I appreciate what you said. For obvious reasons, I don't think I'll be working there anymore. Can you think of anyone who might want a willing hand? As he said this, he was taking off his shirt and going to the back to change into his camp cities. Rocky and Talbot had worked together so closely they were basically two men with a single mind. Talbot called after him. Josh, hold up a minute. Put the shirt back on for a second. Josh did and squared himself away. Talbot's student gave him a thorough inspection. We're going to have to teach you how to polish those damn shoes if you're going to be a deputy in this town. Josh's head snapped up so fast I could hear his neck crack. Rocky agreed. Yep, the uniform's all right, but those shoes. Looks like they haven't seen the spit shine for a long time. Just the boys came out quavering. Are you guys serious? Talbot nodded. Well, things will be settling down for a while. Morgan's coming back on duty as well. If we're on duty, we can have someone roaming a while, the other stays here. We alternate, so someone is always on the lookout for trouble brewing day and night. Can't say how long this is going to last, but having the fact that you were put in as a deputy won't hurt me. Rocky pulled Josh into the back office. Josh, I didn't lie when I said you worked with us to settle things down. You did. Maybe not right away, but eventually you got your head out of your ass and did the right thing. Once we have things under control, I'll talk to Norman about putting you in on the ads at the paper. You know, people get put in better ads, and that will really do some good. In the meantime, you can use your spin doctor skills and put in some articles promoting the town and its history. Norman pays pretty good for outside stories that forward local interests. Rocky and Josh shook hands, and the bargain was sealed. Rocky walked out, but Josh stayed behind and put a mirror polish on his shoes. Jane looked on Josh in awe. Long ago, he'd been a crossing guard, and then he had worked at the gas station and had a uniform then. She'd even see him in his full Boy Scout uniform with a sash full of badges. But he'd never looked as impressive as he did now. Looking at him as she spoke, her voice shook with excitement. He's not on duty now, is he? Rocky tried to maintain a professional demeanor, but was having a hard time. He starts tomorrow morning with Morgan as acting sheriff. Her eyes gleamed. Good. I want to show him off tonight. She took him by the arm and dragged him out the door. Morgan stood and stretched. Well, since I'm on duty for the morning shift, guess I'll head off to spend the evening at home. Rocky, you and Talbot have been working pretty long hours. Talbot's so ashamed of himself of how they've been acting. I bet it's safe for you two to take the night off. Rocky Talbot agreed to split the shift so they could both get some well-earned rest. Josh and Jane were visiting everywhere, and Jane was introducing the new deputy in town. Her pride in him was apparent to everyone. When Josh took her home for a little cake and ice cream, his mother hovered around Jane like a mother hen. She'd always liked her and was glad to see them back together again. Seeing the ring on her finger gave her high hopes for the future. After he took Jane home and was going back up to bed, she called after him. Now you may have more socks to wear than you need. Josh went to his room and buried his head under the pillow. All right, that's it for right now. We've got a couple more chapters tomorrow, or next Friday. So, day after Christmas. So, yeah, Friday we'll be doing. That was discussion. So let's see which the next ones are. Rebuilding, and let's see how long that one is, and ripples. So, 2 or 3. We'll see what we do. The next one after that is weighing the scale. So we'll see. Try to keep these about half an hour readings. So yeah, we might do 3 more. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you on against the. Did that whole thing without goofing up, and this now I can't talk when I'm just saying things for myself. So that's it for today. I look forward to seeing you on our next reading. I'm gonna, let's see. Allison Bard, what does it say? 6380. Hi. So that's it for right now. We're gonna close out. I look forward to seeing you again on Friday when we do our next reading, 10 o'clock. Don't forget, be there, be square, be good, and be good to yourselves. Have a good day. Bye. And the mouse I left over there. So, gotta get it. Have a good one. Be good.